lot of aspiring podcasters are putting off launching their shows because they think they need a video-ready setup. As we've said on Podcraft many times before, video can work brilliantly in certain situations, but it's not required on day one, and in fact it might never be the right fit for your show. Adding it later on is entirely up to you. Well, I recently heard about a creator doing short, sharp, audio-only episodes which she likened to getting a voice note from a friend. On the one hand, this is such an obvious and traditional podcasting approach, but on the other hand, it feels refreshing and even a bit novel in 2025. The podcast's called Build with Becky, and episodes typically run between 6 and 12 minutes. Becky's expertise is around growing community-driven businesses, and she uses these episodes to offer up one tip or tactic, or to answer one listener question. This content's extremely high value for Becky's audience, and yet it's done in a completely sustainable and low barrier way. That's the holy grail for podcasters, and I wanted to find out more about it all from Becky herself. I kicked things off by asking her what her motivation or inspiration behind this format was, and why she didn't get stuck in that common pitfall of feeling like she needed to create a TV show in order to launch her podcast.
Yeah, so I definitely fell into that camp. Like for probably 2 years, I've had start a podcast as like a dream. And in my head, I was like, I need to paint this wall and I need like boom light. I actually paid somebody like a stupid amount of money to tell me how to set up my office to be like have a great video setup so I could start a podcast. And I just kept putting off the expense, and I was worried about how long it would take to produce. And so anyway, I was putting it off, and then one day I was like, what would it look like for this to be like so easy? Because at the end of the day, my goal with starting a podcast is to nurture leads for my agency. Like when I jump on a call with somebody, when I have the opportunity to present them a more deeper training on the kind of work we do and all of the little experiments we're running, then I most of the time get a yes from a client. So I know that if I can just like have an opportunity to get 5 minutes of their time, that they're more likely to want to work with me, because there's a lot of sort of problem awareness and solution awareness I need to do in my work to get people to buy. So yeah, I just realized like, well, maybe there's a way I could do this that would be super easy. And I'll tell you, it takes me about 15 minutes from idea for an episode to it's scheduled total. Like that's it.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I was going to ask you about kind of time frames. So 15 minutes, like, so you'll have an idea that you want to talk about. And so you're just pulling your phone out. Are you using an external mic, or are you just going straight into the phone?
Yeah, so I'm using my computer, my MacBook. I could use a phone like with a DJI mic or something like that would totally work the same. But I just sit at my desk, and so I do it at my desk. But I pull out my phone when I have the idea, and I have a note in my Apple Note. This is so unsophisticated, but it's working. So I have an Apple Note in my phone with all my podcast ideas, and I put like a check mark emoji once I've recorded it. So I've got like all the past ones below. Recently, I did some Instagram stories where I was like, what questions do you want me to answer on the podcast? And I got some really good questions. And so I listed the questions out. And then one day I went through and like kind of like jotted down a few notes. Like each episode idea for me has the title or the concept, and then maybe 5 or 6 bullet points of things I want to touch on. And then I open up the Voice Memos app on my MacBook, like seriously, like the one that comes with your computer, like nothing fancy. And I just hit record. There's 2 functions I use. Pause, because you can pause it. So sometimes I'll pause, collect my thoughts, breathe for a second, and then keep going. So like pause, resume. And then if I say something and I'm like, that was dumb, there's like a replace function. So I'm editing like in real time. And it's just slight edits. Like I might do that. Like I recorded one this morning and I did that once. Like I recorded over myself one time. And then I download it to my computer, upload it to Captivate, which is the tool that I use for distribution. And then Captivate gives me a transcript, which I send through a GPT I've made for myself. That's like my podcast show notes. So I'm like, I've given it all of the rules and everything. And I'm like, write my show notes. And then I just, for the most part, copy paste it, tweak it a little bit. That's it. Schedule.
It's brilliant. No, I love it. I love it because, like we're saying, you know, I could understand why a lot of people they're apprehensive about getting into podcasting because they feel like there's a lot to put in place, and there obviously is. Like, I mean, a big part of this is that you knew what you wanted to say and you had that nailed down. Like, you very much had the messaging nailed down, but the mechanics of putting a podcast together and putting it out there, it could still fox a lot of people. And I just love this approach because you're getting stuff out there really sustainably. What's the reception been like? Because obviously you had an audience already. Like, how did they kind of react to your podcast?
Yeah, I've gotten a lot of great feedback. I'll get messages from people that are like, hey, this episode really resonated. Every week I send a newsletter as well, and I know we might talk about that later. But in my newsletter, I just added a new section that's like podcast drops this week. And sometimes I have one, sometimes I have two. And so I'll list those. And so like last weekend, I sent out my newsletter, and then it had 2 episodes that were recapped in there. And somebody replied and was like, I just wanted to tell you I really loved this episode about AI and like I'm implementing stuff that you shared. And so I get messages and DMs like that pretty frequently. I've also had people message me. It's mostly like DMs on Instagram where people reach out, but they'll say like, hey, this really resonated. Or I had somebody reach out that said they've actually found me through Spotify from searching community building, which is super cool because I don't see podcasting, and you can maybe convince me otherwise, but I don't really see it as like a great discovery tool. But it's really great for nurture. And so I was surprised that people have found me through my podcast. And like somebody I talked to recently I mentioned a story. So part of my strategy in my episodes is like I'll share a story from talking to a client or a prospect or a connection call. So a lot of times I'm referencing other people, and then they'll share that episode because they're like, oh, I had this conversation with Becky and she recorded a podcast about it. And that's a good way to get people to share your podcast. And so that's been great because people will say like, hey, I started listening to your podcast because, you know, Romy shared the episode where you talked about your conversation with her. And like I can plug people's communities, which they get really excited about. And that was why I also did this listener Q series, because I was like, maybe they'll share because I answered their question on the pod. So TBD if like, you know, it continues to grow from this past month of doing those. But I'll give you a really cool, tangible example. So this woman recently booked a sales call with me, and just to clarify, like I run an agency. We design, build, and manage community products, so memberships, programs. Affinity Collective is what it's called. And so she booked a discovery call for Affinity Collective. Currently, I'm doing our sales calls. So I look her up because I'm like, most of the people that book sales calls with me, like I've DM'd with them, like they engage with my content, or they've been introduced to me some way. So like usually I have some kind of personal connection with our clients, and I didn't recognize this person's name. So I'm like searching, I'm like, I don't see any mutual connections here. So I reply back and I'm like, hey, can't wait to meet with you. Like, do you mind answering, like, how'd you find me? And she was like, well, actually I found you via ChatGPT. Like I was asking about needing help with product strategy and product management for community products, which is really unique to what we do. And so it recommended me, which is like so cool. But also I was like, oh man, she doesn't know like anything about our work. Like this will be interesting. So I decided to reply to her, and I was like, hey, most people know me that book these calls. So I just wanted to share a couple podcast episodes with you, but before we meet. So we had a meeting on Friday. This was like Tuesday. And I was like, the episodes are really short. It's like a voice note from me. They're like 5 minutes. Here's a couple links. And I shared one with her that kind of answered some of the problem that she shared in her booking. So I was like, this will be relevant for her. And then I shared one of my first episodes is just about my journey to entrepreneurship. So that's like a trust builder. So I sent her those 2 episodes and one other. She replied back and she was like, this was amazing. These were so helpful. I'm so excited to talk to you now. Also, I'm stealing this idea because this was a great way to like get me excited about our sales call. And she ended up booking a project. So in less than a week, somebody found me on ChatGPT and booked a $5,000 project. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah. And it sounds like the podcast just fitted nicely in there to kind of almost do that, like onboarding, if you like, or it's really cool to hear. And yeah, the length of the show as well, like you're saying, and I've been hearing this a lot recently for different people talking about podcasting, that your typical podcast listener, they have room in their life for maybe like 6 shows. That's, again, it's probably not a hard stat, but it's a rough average if you think about like your podcast app. Maybe there's like 6 shows you're into. And that's not to say that if a 7th show comes along, you won't give it a chance, but the buy-in to your show with the episode lengths, it's much easier to say, okay, I'm actually going to give Becky a shot here because, like, what's 7 minutes, you know? Yeah. Whereas, like, if I find a new show and the episodes are an hour and a half, and that's not to say that might not be a brilliant show, and there's totally a place for doing long-form episodes, but it's a bigger commitment, and you're maybe less likely sometimes to say, I don't know about this, like, 2-hour behemoth. So I think the episode length is working really well, and I mean I take it that as a format that just seems to suit what you're doing very well.
Yeah, so I can speak to that a bit from the newsletter lens. So I've been writing this newsletter for like 2.5 years now, and I've now branded the newsletter and the show the same, so it's Build with Becky newsletter. And I did this, like, it was my birthday, and I sent an email that was like, it's my birthday. All I want for my birthday is newsletter testimonials. Click here and you can win a prize. So I was like giving out a bunch of free stuff for people that gave me newsletter testimonials. And what I learned from that, I think I got like 25 or something like that. What I learned from it is that almost every single person used the phrase, I feel like I'm learning from my smart friend. And I was like, okay. That's like how people are describing me. And so that's how I positioned the podcast, like a quick voice note from your smart friend. Because, which feels weird to like call yourself smart, but whatever, like people call me smart, fine. So yeah, that's the idea. Like you can learn from me in a few minutes. Like, and the other thing that inspired it was I have this group chat with a few other women that we talk every day, all day, like, cause we're all doing similar things, like building agencies in different verticals. And we voice note each other. It's like yesterday, one of my friends had some crazy response to contract edits. And it was like the meanest email I've ever read in my life. And so she's like sending screenshots and then we're voice noting, here's how I would solve that problem to each other. And I'm like, what if some of my voice notes to my friends, like there's some real gold in there. I'm like really giving good advice. And so I'm like, what if I just made these public? And that was, the combination of those two things was how the idea was born. Yeah,
I love that, like, voice note concept. And, like, I mean, the voice note thing is so common now, isn't it? Like, me and my pals, we send a lot of them back and forward. And, I mean, I'm going back maybe, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago now. And, like, when one of my pals started sending me voice notes, I'm like, what's he doing? Like, this is weird. And then, like, a few weeks later, I was, like, getting back. Like, the first time I sent one, even though I've been in podcasting a long time, I was like, it feels a bit funny doing this. But now it's, like, it's really common for people to send voice notes back and forward. And, I think that is a good on-ramp for people to get into that kind of format of podcast. And again, based on conversations we've had quite recently on Podcraft, we're talking a lot about recording. I know you don't do this yourself necessarily, but recording outdoors. We've spoke to people who are recording their shows, like walking the dog, just on their phone and stuff like that. And it's very AI-proof content. Again, AI is great in certain ways, but really authentic human podcasts, when we hear people going out on walks and talking and doing some kind of short voice note stuff, it's very human content, isn't it? So
yeah, I find that does really well with like short form video. Like when I do like video content on Instagram, I think the thing that I get stuck on with podcasting with the voice notes is even though it's a voice note, I wanted to make sure the audio quality was high. So you asked me earlier if I use a microphone. I do. It's the same microphone I'm using right now. So like it's a cheap like Samsung thing, or not Samsung, whatever. But it's a cheap mic, like $80 maybe. And I use that because I want the audio quality to still be good. Because I don't know if you ever get a voice note from a friend and it's like, dude, are you in a bar or something? Like, it's hard to hear you. Like, it's frustrating. So I think that's the only thing I have, like, maybe a hard point of view on. And then also, I feel like I should give credit. Like, I thought of this idea also because Joe Casabona was doing voice note podcasting, which is really good. And he's a friend of mine that's a group with me. And then also Jay Klaus does these like voice memo episodes on his feed. And so I've seen it pop up in a few other places. And I'm like, well, what if that was just the entire show?
Yeah, it's cool you mentioned Joe. I love Joe. I've known him for a while, and he's always doing really good stuff. So is that something Joe's been kind of experimenting with as well? This kind of format.
He's the first one I know that was doing it. So he did it for a while, and then Jay started doing it, and then I don't know, there's a couple others, but Joe really mentored me and helped me launch my show. Like, I shared with him the idea and he gave me feedback on the cover art and all of that stuff. I feel like the most time I put into it was just like planning a really clear premise of the show. What am I going to focus on? Like having clear positioning. And I was inspired by all the things I've already shared, but that I really tried to nail, and he's really good about that stuff. So he helped me with like launching, which was really great.
Yeah, you're in good hands with Joe. Like, he really knows his stuff. Yeah, great guy. On we've talked a wee bit about email, and I'd like to ask you a wee bit about that too. I mean, it's something we've ran an email list for years and years, but in the last couple of years, we have tried to put more of an effort into doing something with it, rather than, every once in a blue moon we fire an email out. So, like, how long have you been running your email?
Yeah, I started sending my newsletter in January 2023, and it's been almost weekly since then. I've definitely taken weeks off here and there. I didn't send one this last weekend because I was on a 2-week road trip around Colorado, and I was like, I need a week. So yeah, I take weeks off. Usually I give people a heads up, maybe like 4 to 6 weeks a year I skip after year one. Year one, I didn't miss a published date. But yeah, I mean, I call it an essay. It's pretty short, but my whole idea is like you get one strategy. Like, you should get one takeaway that you can go and implement in your community to make things work better from every issue. And that's the idea from the podcast too. You get one from every episode. I've been experimenting with like using the same content in the podcast as the newsletter. And I have found my data's like not great yet. I'm a very data-driven person. Like, if you follow my content, I talk a lot about like, we learned this thing, we had this insight, and so we experimented with this, like very product management, tech community, like process that I follow. But I have noticed I get a slightly higher unsubscribe rate when it's the same. And I don't know if that's the correlation or not, but it's something I'm like curious about. And so I don't know, I've been a little sensitive to trying to make sure it's like 2 different topics. And I'm not sure it really matters, but there's been weeks where I'm really busy. And so I'll just flip the transcript from the podcast into an essay and like send that in the newsletter that weekend. So for some of the essays on my website now, I'll like embed the player from the show. But also I want to get more people listening to the show. And so if like, 50 people on average are listening to an episode and I have like 1,000 email subscribers, there's a lot more people that could be listening.
Yeah, I've wondered about that too with it, like, because we put our email out on a Monday night, but the podcast goes out on like a Thursday or Friday, just depending on different factors. It'll go out on one of the days. And it is like, I'm overthinking it in the fact that like there's 1,000 people listening to the podcast, but there's like 25,000 people on the email list. So obviously like a lot of those email readers don't listen to the podcast for one reason or another. But I'm always a bit funny when I'm like, if I'm leading with say we do a podcast episode and that's going to lead to the email, that's going to be the headline and that. And then I'm like, but did they hear that like 3 days ago? And does that mean they're just not going to open the email? But again, like when you look at the numbers, it probably makes sense still to go with that as a headline. But you kind of drive yourself nuts thinking about these things sometimes, don't you?
Yeah, for sure. I'm not sure it really matters. Like at the end of the day, I'm just trying to help people build community, and I want to share what I know and like what's working for my clients. I'm always inspired by my client stories. Like, hey, we're experimenting with this thing. This is working really well. And so this morning I dropped an episode about a survey question that I like to ask to help improve engagement. And I just told the story of how I've asked that question, the insights I've learned, and how I've implemented that in previous companies, and why I'm asking it for this current client. It's just like a good takeaway. Somebody could listen to that and then say, oh, okay, I'm going to go try asking this survey question. And then I'll probably get people messaging me in like a month saying, hey, I got this idea from you and this is what happened. And that, I love that. That makes me feel really good. And like the more smaller communities I can help grow, the more people I'm going to have coming back to me later that's like, hey, we're ready for program management, or can you do an audit to help us scale to 7 figures? And they'll be ready for that, because I helped them get through the first hump.
Hey there, quick little sidebar to talk about a tool that I've been looking a lot at recently, and is the sponsor for this episode, but because I believe it's actually a really good one for podcasters. It's called Score App. So Score App, and it's a quiz tool. So you can offer up a quiz to your listeners. They take the quiz and you can give them some personal feedback based on that quiz. The whole goal is that it's around growing your podcast's email list or directing people towards maybe products or services you have. So it's really good for growing that email list, getting more subscribers, or directing people straight to your services. The thing is, people often use, traditional lead magnets like PDFs, cheat sheets, that kind of thing. They're totally fine, but there's a lot of them around. It's kind of hard to get people excited about another free download these days. So I'm just finding these quizzes way more engaging, actually. People kind of want to take them. They're almost like going back to that old school Facebook thing where you would get a quiz like, which Harry Potter character are you, or something like that. Except Score App lets you build a quiz like that really easily, less than half an hour, which is much more focused on your listeners. So for example, you might get a podcast for freelancers, which has a quiz like, what's your freelance business score? And you intrigue people in, and then you can give them some feedback based on the answers that they give you. Or maybe it's something like, are you ready to raise your rates? And you can give them advice on raising their rates or what average rates are. So the listeners take the quiz, they get a personalized result, and you get their email and you learn a bit about their needs. And so either you can just put them straight in your list and start emailing them and help them become more loyal listeners of your show, or you can even send them some sales material after that. So if you want to check this out, it's kind of a more fun way to better engage your listeners. It's a really smart way to build that email list, whether it's for just pure engagement and loyalty or whether it's for sales. Go over to Score App. So that's SCOREAPP, that's scoreapp.com, and there you can build your first quiz for free and see how it works, see if it might work for you.
Just like back on the kind of podcasting front there, I mean, something I'm just thinking of is like, based on a lot of data research that we've done over the years, we know that like a lot of podcasters start with solo shows and then they end up doing a couple of interviews and then they kind of morph into an interview show, whether they intended it or not. Have you ever been tempted to stick a longer form interview on your feed, or what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's funny. When I said I was really dreaming of a show that I wanted to start, it was a really different show. It was more like interviewing really successful membership creators and people in the membership world. I mean, I'm so well connected I used to work at Boss Babe. I've worked with a lot of the larger platforms. So I know people leading these platform companies. And so I feel like I could get really cool people to come talk about membership strategy and retention and nerdy stuff. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that would be exciting, but I don't feel tempted to do it right now. The one thing I've thought about is swaps. So for example, I actually messaged a friend the other day and I was like, she has a similar podcast in the sense that she's doing solo episodes. And I was like, would you be down to swap feeds? I'll do an episode for yours, you'll do an episode for mine, but I still want it to be in my style. So that's something like a voice note style. So, 10 minutes or less. So that's something I'm experimenting with. I'm always thinking about experimentation. So this month I mentioned I did that listener series, and I dropped 2 episodes per week instead of 1. And that was kind of funny because I was like, I want more downloads. I want more people listening. And I'm like, okay, well, obviously more episodes equals more downloads. Yes, that's what the data told me, but was it worth it? Is that a good thing to do? I don't know. So, what I've realized is I'm such a novice. Like, I don't really know what to take away from my podcast data yet. But I am just having fun experimenting. And what I'm looking at is like, which episodes do people reach out to me about or tag me and say like, hey, this was great, or you should listen to this, or the ones that have a way higher count, because then I know that they were shared more. Like those are the things I'm paying attention to today. Sorry, I went on a tangent.
No, it's all good. It's all good. Are you managing to fire that out to YouTube just like as a static image video or anything like your episodes?
No, do you think I should?
Yes, there's no harm in it. Like it's like one of my own podcasts I put on there, and it's just an automated thing with my host, so it's just audio, and then it pumps it out as just puts the cover art, and it's like between 30 and 50 views, so listens. And I always think to myself, it's not much, but then it's the old cliche of imagine a room full of 50, and it's like,
yeah,
for literally the click of a button, like I'd be stupid not to do it. I'm not saying you're stupid, but like, sorry, that totally came out wrong. But
you can't call me stupid. I'm the smart friend.
You're the smart friend, I know. I'm the stupid one. But Captivate will have an easy tool just to, you know, whether you have an existing YouTube channel or you just create one for that purpose, and yeah, it's one of them, like at the click of a button, and it just puts it there. So what are you drawing from your expertise in your business, teaching people about community building? What are you taking from that to put into your podcast and your email and your content?
Yeah, I think it's kind of in the same vein. It's like connecting with people one-to-one, getting to know them. Community building is connecting people to each other. And it's not one-to-many, it's many-to-many. And so bringing together groups to share knowledge, to connect, to like do a happy hour, whatever, it can be really basic. And I think people get caught up in, oh, I need to have this like really advanced online space, or I need to run a conference or a summit, or like have this huge community experience. And it can really be small, and it starts with one-to-ones, like one-to-one connection. And all of a sudden, as the community builder, as the connector, you start to see patterns, and you're like, oh, these 5 people all have this thing in common. Like, what if I, brought them together to teach this thing or to work on this thing? And so it's really more about becoming the connector. So in my own business, I'm doing this through having a lot of like one-to-one conversations today. But I'm dreaming up something to bring community builders together. So TBD on that. But it's like the next evolution from what I've been doing one-to-one.
Sounds like, based on some conversations you've had on your show, that you're really big, as much as, the online community stuff is great. It sounds like you're pretty big on real life stuff as well, and doing physical things together, meeting up and stuff like that.
Yeah, I every year I write this like predictions issue, and I think it was my number 1 or maybe number 2 prediction this year was like, in real life experiences will become a baseline expectation for successful online communities. So it's really interesting. I think it's just like the post-COVID era where people are dying for connection, in-person experiences. We're seeing, travel increase, all of that. And so, and with AI and everything, like we just want to be human. We just want to like be in the same room with another person and have a chat. And it's just like a different vibe. And so I'll give you an example. I have a client who has an 8-week program. And at the beginning of their 8-week program, they were like, let's do a weekend in person in LA at the end of the cohort. Would you guys come? And 50% of the members of that cohort flew to LA from all over the world to come together for a weekend. And so now we do it with every single cohort. That was cohort 2. And now we're starting cohort 6 today, actually. And so every time now we have like a graduation weekend where we bring everybody together. So that's like an online program. And then there's a weekend of in-person activities. And that's just becoming, I think it's going to be table stakes. Like right now, it's really a standout experience, but I think it's going to continue to become a must-have for, again, any especially higher ticket programs, masterminds, memberships. like some kind of way for people to come together in person. And on a simpler level, let's say somebody has a membership where they have like 50 members that are kind of spread out. You can do like a couple satellite city events where you do like a happy hour in a city or something basic. You could also empower members to host those events. So like if you as the community builder can't like necessarily fly around or travel around and do this, you could empower community leaders in your community that want to actually bring people together, and you can support them through that. In the same community I was telling you about, we actually do this through giving them support and helping them organize dinners. So we have this event for the program, but then for the global community, we have these dinners that are hosted by members all over the world that happen all the time. So yeah, I think it's just going to become the norm and necessary.
So what, just as we kind of come round towards the end of our time, it's been a really great chat, Becky. What's kind of next on your agenda for the show? Like, you've got your list of episodes there. Are you just going to keep working your way through those ideas?
Yeah, and I don't want to make it sound like it's a long list. Like, I think there's one episode idea in there right now, but like they just pop up, and then some days I'll have like 3, and then some weeks I'll have 0. But yeah, I just want to keep doing what I'm doing. Like, I don't think I have enough data yet to prove like, well, actually I have enough data that says like, hey, this is working, keep going. So right now my plan is keep going. I think my biggest question right now is like, should I drop more than 1 episode a month or week? Sorry. And so this past month I did 2 episodes a week. It was pretty doable. I batched them in like 2 different recording sessions. I just like back to back did it. So like 2 hours of recording, not a big deal. But like, is that overwhelming to people to have that many episodes in a week, like more than 1, or should I stick with 1? Like, this is the thing I don't really know right now. So I'm not sure, but
I think personally, like with the length of them, I think if you're even under 15 minutes, I reckon two a week's like totally inoffensive to folks. Again, different if you're dropping a 3 hour 3 hour on the Monday and then you're back again on the Thursday. But no, so long as it was sustainable, which it sounds like it is, I wouldn't worry about that. Like, if you've got the content, if you've got the thing you want to talk about, I would, and you know what, you could go back to weekly if you want. Like, it's your show. You're not signing a contract or that. So
yeah, and the idea too for me was like, I want to share a voice note when I have this thought. Like, for example, I went to an event for a community that I'm in, and it was a 2-day event. And at the end of each day, I recorded an episode recapping it. Those were like 2 of my most popular episodes, by the way. People wanted to be at that event. So they were like, what's happening behind the scenes? So I think in certain situations, I'm going to do that. Oh, something I have planned for the show is I'm going to start testing some series. And I think this is kind of where I'm like, this could be a longer episode. So I'm launching a new community framework. It'll be launching probably end of this month, early next month. And I'm excited about that. And so it's a 3-stage community framework. And so I think it could either be a really long episode, like a 20-minute episode or something like that, or I could do a series with the breakdown of the 3 parts. So I'm going to do it like that because then it still fits into the show. But I think I'm going to drop all 3 of them on the same day. So it's like, here's the connected community model series with like the 3 parts. So that's an experiment I have coming up. And then I think I really just want to drop episodes as I get inspired. And some weeks that'll be 1, and some weeks that'll be 2 or 3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, keep experimenting and I'll keep following along as well and look forward with interest on seeing how it all develops. But you're doing great stuff, and like I say, I really do enjoy that format, and I think it's so good to hear that you've been able to do this sometimes in 15 minutes. It's an excellent takeaway, I think, for the listener, especially if they've still not started yet and they're maybe overthinking a lot of what they need to do to get a podcast out there. So let us know, Becky, where we could find you, the podcast, the newsletter, and your community.
Yeah, so you can find my podcast on any podcast player. Just search Build with Becky. My website is beckypearson.com/newsletter if you want to check out the newsletter. You can subscribe there. And yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn or Instagram.
Hey, it's Colin here. Thank you for listening. And if you enjoyed this content, please do check out the products we do as well, which supports everything we do. One of which is Alitu. A bonus to you being you get a great tool to create your podcast and make it much easier to get that show out into the world every single week. It's our podcast creator app, which includes call recording. It includes audio cleanup from your leveling to your voice EQ to your noise reduction. It includes audio editing, including text-based editing, normal editing, and AI filters to take out your ums and ahs and all of that kind of stuff. Plus, it has podcast hosting built right in. So it really is the all-in-one. We've built it for podcasters, and we are podcasters, so we really built it to make it as easy as possible to get your show out there into the world every single week at the top possible quality. So go over to alitu.com, that's alitu.com, and we've got a 7-day free trial, so you can try it for one episode, see if it fits you, and hopefully you'll stick around. All right, thanks again, and we'll talk to you next time.